Yo, what is going on, everybody? It's Brave Cat here once again with another Frontier Signals update. So let's just run through everything here. The SDO website is still down, so I'm just going to go over to the NOAA and get everything over here. So we had a pretty minor M flare. I'm not even sure if that's technically an M flare. It's like right at the edge of the graph there. But it did look like it produced a coronal mass ejection. And it looks like that will be just grazing us possibly tomorrow. But other than that, things have been pretty calm. Not too much to report on there. So I was looking at the sunspots here. So once again, this looks pretty much empty when we look at the far side. So the gray region is what's facing us right now. And the rest of the regions here is the far side. So once again, the really dark and large sunspots that were just right over here seem to have pretty much vanished, and that region is going to be turning in to face us now. So you can just barely see something peeking out from there. But looking over here, you can actually see those bright active regions, and they look pretty active. In fact, that is where the low M class flare came from, right over here. And we also do have a coronal hole that is going to be facing us here in the next couple days. So that's pretty much what we got to look forward to from there. And one other thing I wanted to quickly mention here, I released my first paper over here on catastrophists. So this is going into actual figures dating back to the 1600s. So this first one here covers 7 of them. And there's 3 more parts to be coming after this. So it has, quite a bit of good history here, quite a bit of relevance in the catastrophist field, from global floods, glaciers, fossils, and all sorts of other evidence here. So pretty happy with the way that turned out, and hopefully I can get these other 3 pumped out here pretty soon. So could leave a link in the description here, but the website is always down there. So come check it out. There's no advertisements, there's no cookies, there's none of that BS over here. So pretty free to use. And moving on here. So we do need to take a pretty good look here at the earthquakes going on, especially in the last 24 hours here. So we still have a pretty massive uptick going on up here around Kamchatka, Alaska, and even Japan, to the point where we could be looking at 1, if not more, pretty major events going on up here in the 6 to 7 range potentially. So we got to look at the areas that are having these swarms. We got to look in between the areas, and over here in Japan there was a 5.9 that is fairly deep, not super deep, but 140 kilometers. And looking at the station details here, it looks like we could easily round this up to a 6. And there's quite a few station details on here listed in the 6 range. However, there's a lot in total. So it goes all the way down to a 4.9 is the lowest reading, and a 6.9 is the highest reading, with, again, quite a few of these readings in the 6 range going down the list. So that is something to watch out for, and definitely contributes to the possibility of a larger earthquake, possibly like stretching from northern Japan all the way over here to Alaska is where we're going to be looking for something major to happen following that activity. And taking things here into the States, we still have this ongoing, pretty significant tremor swarm. At least it's not a bunch of 3s and 4s like we have over here, but it is still a tremor swarm to look after here. Again, over here by San Francisco. And that isn't going to be leading to anything quite as large as what we see potentially going on over here, but we are going to be on the lookout for something in the 4, maybe even the 5 range. If that doesn't happen, I'll be pretty surprised. Let's see, I actually haven't opened the tremor map. So we open this up here to a completely blank slate. And once again, this is looking pretty quiet here. So it doesn't seem like there's apparently a whole lot of slow slip movement in the northern side going into Canada. But again, we do see a lot of activity down south. And again, the same locations here. We got Texas and Louisiana. So there still has been activity going on here following that 4.9, I believe it was. Let's take that back here. So yeah, we had the 4.9. And at this point, it seems a little bit too spaced out to necessarily be aftershocks. But, you know, again, I'm not an expert. But we do have more activity going on there. A little bit anomalous because it's not really a region that we see that happen all too often. And looking at the rest of the activity here, we have more deep events over here. And the other major thing is going to be over here in Europe. So we did have that swarm going on over here in Greece. And now we have Western Turkey going off once again here. So, I mean, there is potentially some quarries and possibly man-made activity going on over here. And this swarm, I think the previous activity was usually a little bit more central. This seems to be a little bit more south to the previous ones, but it does involve another 5. So this is also going to put Europe in the watch zone in the coming days. So we could see something, it might be in between these two zones, or it could be localized at one of these. Not entirely sure, but that is a pretty drastic uptick here with 5s, 4s, and 3s. So that is pretty much what we got going on there. Looking at the volcanoes for today, take a look at this one here. So it looks like Kamchatka has had some movement here in the lava dome, continuing to grow. And then there's, again, some of the same active eruptions happening with these ash plumes here. And we also have some clips here and a couple things I want to share over on X. So this happened over at Reventador. So pretty large ash plume coming out of there. And Sabancaya down here with a slightly larger ash plume. So we're just going to wrap things up over here on X. Got some things to cover and some videos that I want to make in the future, doing a little bit of a deep dive on some of these topics here. So first off, we got a space weather forecast from Ben saying that there is potentially the Riger uptick around early April. And this is around the same time that we're going to have a sun diving comet potentially go and, well, dive into the sun. So I think early April is definitely something to look out for in terms of space weather. And especially depending on what kind of sunspots we got going on at the time. It's definitely going to be a period of significance for that. Then we have another post here from Jimmy about Göbekli Tepe. Well, he's basically saying, reporting that, you know, they're warning people not to travel to southeast Turkey, which is where Göbekli Tepe is. And just speaking of that site overall, this is such a crucial site in terms of ancient civilizations. I mean, you have these massive T-pillars here, which have carved onto them all sorts of different messages and hieroglyphs, and it's very, very telling based on the ones that they refuse to excavate, and just the general stoppage in the excavations themselves. So I want to try to make a video on this at some point as well, because this is really significant. You've got the World Economic Forum, they have their grubby hands all over this, as well as other megalithic sites throughout the world here. It's not just Göbekli Tepe. There are sites quite literally everywhere that are being suppressed or just not being funded whatsoever to be excavated. And I mean, this would quite literally rewrite history if we actually had all the information coming out of here. So moving on from that, there is a couple of other things. So yesterday it looks like there was a meteorite, and this actually seemed to break up and strike parts of Germany, causing some damage here. And this comet can be seen in Belgium, Netherlands, So pretty much across Europe where this was seen. We've got a fire down here. And saying from a vape shop, I'm not exactly sure. It looks like a pretty historical building. And a couple other things here. So we have more clips on the volcano eruptions here. So this is from Merapi. And again, from Merapi here, we have some pyroclastic flows coming out of there. And some flooding going on in Brazil. And then just this kind of neat clip here of a special logboat for moving logs in the water. Just thought that was kind of interesting. So that'll pretty much wrap things up here for today's news. And hope y'all enjoyed. Please like and subscribe for more. And I'll catch you all in the next.